Hi everyone, I'm Yanjali. It is the second week of our technical session. So today I will continuously give you the technical education of Genian, how to set the policy. So today agenda is the basic definition and the rule for setting policy in the Genian, the second part. Okay, let's start to the second technical session. So before we start today's session, we will quickly review what we learned from the session 1. So I gathered some keyword in the session 1. So once you decided to create the policy, you first need to create the group first. So Genian provided two types of the group. The first one is policy group, which is about the node information. And the other one is the status group, which is about the node condition. So after you creating the group, you can make some policy. For example, if you wanted some correcting the device visibility, the group visibility, you move it to the node policy. And if you wanted to allowing, denying, or redirect the group, you move it to the enforcement policy. So if you still are a little bit confused or complex about them, please don't worry about it because in the session 3, I will prepare the actual use case for practicing them in the UI. So please watch this session in the end for today. So last session, we have learned about the requirement in the policy menu. Today, we are going to learn about the definition in the policy menu. So the UI's button and choices are defined by Genian, so you need a time to learn what is what. So the point is here, I'm going to explain what definition of the UI's button and menu, and it will be very helpful when you set the policy by your hand. So don't miss out this session for today. In the policy menu, there are three sub-menus. First one is node and node policy and enforcement policy. They have their own definition we should have to remember for setting the policy. So let's check that each one by one. The first definition is in the node menu. So last session, we have learned about that in the node menu, there are two types of the group. The first one is policy group, the other one is status group. And we also have learned what is what and why they are divided into two groups. So now it is time to learn how to create two types of the group in the UI. Okay, let's check that each one by one. So we are going to learn how to create policy group in the node menu. So please take a look at this slide. The directory of the node menu is the policy menu on the top, and its sub-menu is the group. The group's one of the sub-menu is node menu. So after you click the node button, there is a page appear for setting policy. So please take a look at this slide. There is the text box. Please click the text box, and then number 1, you should select created for node policy. And next step, number 2, you should have to fill out ID, which means about the group's name. Today, I put the name as the G _ regular _ marketing 1. The meaning of this ID is that the G as the group, the regular means the regular employee, which is who is not the guest. So the meaning of this group name is that the group of the regular employee, especially who working in the marketing team. So please make sure when you make the group name, it should be reflect what the group's function, what the groups does. So next step, number 3, you should have to double check you are now making the group for policy group. And number 4, you should select this choice as the enable for your actual active in the later. And then finally, it is time to make the condition for defining this group. So please take a look at the number 5. You can make the condition one just condition or multiple condition in this group. And then you should select either and or. Because the one example, if you choose that and, it means that all of the conditions should be met, and then the result is applied to this group. But if you choose the or, one of the all condition is met, the result is applied to this group. Today, I fixed it, set the end button, all of the policy. So after you select the end, now you finally make the condition for this group. So normally the business department, especially the marketing or sales, HR, they are recognized by their own IP, especially subnet. With this information, we can create this device's condition, this group's condition. So please take a look at the number 6. Once you click the add button, there are just small pop-up boxes appear. So I wanted to select the criteria of the IP and operate its subnet, and then I'm going to put the value data by myself. Today, I already put the data is the 192.168.2.1. It is the subnet range recognized of the marketing team 1. And then you click the end button. This is how you created policy group in the node menu. Second one, let's start to learn how to create a status group in the node menu. So the directory is all the same as the policy group. So please click the text box, and then in this time you should select just create number 1. And then take a look at the number 2. You also fill out the ID, the group name. Today I put the group name as the Kaspersky antivirus on installation in HQ. What I mean here is that the group which has not installed antivirus, especially the Kaspersky, especially in the HQ. So after you set the group names like that, take a look at the number 3. You should make sure you are making the group for status group. In taking number 4, you should select choice as the enable. And number 5 is time to making the condition defining this group. So I already said that we're going to fix to select the end button. And finally, it is time to set the condition for defining this status group. So I have already said that I'm going to find the devices, the group, which has not installed the antivirus. So I choose the antivirus as the criteria, and operator is the is. The value I selected not installation. Not installation. And then click the end button. So this is how you created of the status group for which has not installed the antivirus on the endpoint. So today I just bring up very general and normal cases for how to make the policy group and status group. So I think the conditions can be very various, what conditions you are now. So please try to practice by yourself on the UI. Maybe you are facing a question or some difficult. In this case, please contact to our engineer team via Slack, or you can just leave your question in the Q&A link. In the next session 3, we are going to fully answer how you have to, what do you have to do it. Okay, let's move to the next part. So far, we have learned that how to create a group in the node menu, the policy group and status group. The second step is time to learn about how to correcting device visibility of the group. So Uh, this this policy, I mean, the correcting the group divisibility, you should move it to the node policy and make the policy up there. So once you set the policy in the node policy menu, you finally enable to check if the device's IP is authorized and if the device's patch status is the latest one, and if the devices has been installed the mandatory software and successfully running. And also you can find that if the devices has been met with the company compliance, I mean the regulation. So let's start how to create it, this kind of the policy in the node policy. So node policy is location. I mean, the directory is the policy menu on the top of their pink box, and its sub-menu is also policy. And it's the very below, there is node policy menu up there. So once you set the creating the policy, you first click the text box and take a look at the number 1. You select the create. And then small box, pop-up box is appear. So take a look at the number 2. You should click the create policy for your new policy. And then click the next. Take a look at the number 3. It is time to fill out the ID. It means that making the policy name. So today, for example, I put the name regular employee 1 under compliant. What I put the meaning over here is that I wanted to correcting the information, any regular employee who have been met with the company regulation. This is my purpose, so I put this name on the ID. And then click the next. And take a look at the number 5. It is time to select the group for this policy. So in the node policy, Genian allowed you to select only policy group that you have made it in the node policy. So today, I'm going to select one of the node policy. Policy group is the G _ regular _ marketing 1. And this group can be a target for this policy. So click the next. Please look at the number 5. Number 5 is, I think I wanted to highlight it, the feature of number 5. Name of the policy preference. Briefly, policy preference function is to set the basic policy for authentication and Genian agent. So policy preference, there are 3 sub-menu inside it. First one, authentication policy, and second, agent policy, and last one, management policy. Let's take a look at each one by one. Okay, let's look at the first of the authentication policy in policy preference. So the role of the authentication policy is that, for example, a new devices in the group is detected by Genian. The Genian make these devices authentication with your predefined policy. For doing that, you should have to prior to set the policy here. Okay, let's look at each one by one. I choose that some choices we should have to requirely see it. Okay, the first one, authentication method. So today I select this choice as the password authentication. So after selecting this item, so a new devices, for example, detected by Genian, the Genian make these devices to get its own ID and password for the authentication. And the second, auto logout. I think that you have already experienced this kind of a feature in other solutions. It's almost the same with them. So I'm going to explain what about that. So auto logout, once you select these choices as the on, so some certain period, a devices has not communicated with the Genian. I mean that some certain period time, the devices has not access to the corporate network and has not detected by Genian net, these devices automatically become the unauthorized status. So after these devices try to access the corporate network, the devices should log in again with its own ID and password. Third one is the customer user login page URL. So to get the ID and password, the devices should be landing some pages, especially sign up, right? We call this CWP. So Genian provided two types of the page for it. First one, Genian provided by default the Genian style of the standard CWP page. Or you can create it your own page with your company logo or some customizing comment in the page. So if you wanted to use the later one, you should have to fill out the URL information in the box. The last one is display name of the username and the password. So you can also make your own title name in the CWP page. For example, you can just simply leave the text because the ID and PW for the password, or just the full name like the username and password. Okay, second sub-menu is the agent policy. The agent here means that the Genian agent. So after you set the policy here, it means that how you operate the Genian in the endpoint. So let's look at each one by one. First one is agent. Today, I select these choices as the on. It means that a device is detected by Genian and verify that there is no Genian agent on the endpoint. Genian make these devices redirect to some certain page to force these devices install the agent. And second one, agent fail safe. So after install and successfully running the agent on the endpoint, but due to some reason, sometimes the agent cannot properly working temporarily. So in this case, Genian maintain this agent working with a status of the very latest version setting. And third one, policy update interval. So the agent and Genian policy server should be regularly communicated to get the latest update one, right? So you can set the specific time, how often between Genian agent and Genian policy server for the new latest updated version. Okay, the third menu, sub-menu is the management policy. This is the general management about the NAC of the Genian So I wanted to highlight it. One thing here is about the deleting download. So you can set some specific time on it, for example, a week or a month, or just a few 5 or 6 days. So after you're setting some specific time here, and then a device has not communicated with the Genian I mean, it has not detected by Genian because of your long-term vacation or your business trip for about a month, and then Genian deleted these devices, I mean the node on his list. So once the device is detected by Genian again, the devices should have to follow a flow of the authentication again. Okay, this is the three menu is for the basic setting for NAC. And then next step, it is finally the creating the policy for collecting the group visibility. Because let's look at the box in the middle. There is the agent action. So there are already several items which has been made by the Genius team. So Today, I just select some of them. For example, authenticate user using the Genian agent and check antivirus software installation and configure Windows security setting. So after I select three of them and click the end button, Genian Neck start to detect and correcting this information from the group, the devices. So this is the how you created the policy for Dota policy. So after you click the end, finally the end, you can find that your policy on the list in the Dota policy page. So far, we have learned about how to create the group and how to correcting the device visibility by the node policy. So finally, we are going to decide if you are going to allowing, denying, and redirect the group. So to make to making working, so you should have to go to enforcement policy. So enforcement policy, you can create a policy for them. Okay, let's take a look at the first the directory of the enforcement policy. So main menu is the policy, and its sub menu is also policy, the same name, and the sub menu is enforcement policy. So after you click the enforcement policy, there is the pages appear for setting the policy up there. So please click the text box and take a look at the number 1. Click the create and take the number 2. You should have to select the create policy for a new policy and click the next. Please take a look at the number 3. You should have to fill out the ID. So today I put the ID name is that block if antivirus and CRM on installation. So what I mean over here is that I wanted to enforcement group which has not installed antivirus and CRM in the group. So after that, you should have to click the next. So next one is to take a look at the number 4. You should have to fill out the group of the policy group and status group. So unlikely the node policy, enforcement policy allowed you choosing the both of the policy group and status group or either one of them. So this group can be a target for enforcement such as blocking or allowing or redirect or remediation. So after you're selecting this group, please look at the number 5. So you can get the permission of them. So after you choosing among them, and then click the next. Please take a look at this number 6. So if you select the redirect, I mean the CWP, you can also set the CWP page like you can use that the Genian standard CWP page or your own customizing page. You can set the policy up here. And number 7, switch port blocking. So it means that you can block the switch port which are connected with this group. So after that, you finish it creating the policy in the enforcement policy. Your enforcement policy is listed put on the list on this page. So it is the almost end of the session 2 for today. So there are also a lot of vocabulary here today, but I hope that you remember only 4 keywords for today. So first one is on Dota policy. So we have already repeated this keyword a lot, right? So if you wanted to correct the groups or devices, the visibility, you should have to go to Dota Policy. And then after you're correcting the visibility, the information about the group, you finally decided what you have to do for your network access control. So in this case, you move to the enforcement policy if you want to allowing or denying or redirect them. So in this case, you move to the enforcement policy. Okay, I really appreciate you joining here today, and I also you enjoyed it today's session too. So I hope you see you guys in the next 2 weeks again. So thank you so much joining us today.
Hi guys, welcome to join Genian's second webinar. We appreciate your attending. Now we are going to have a real-time Q&A session. So we have one question from Nick from IAID. So the question is, when the police server is down, can still the network sensor fetch or get policy to distribute the devices? The answer is actually it depends on your policy setting of the network sensor side. So whether the police policy can be disabled, meaning is the mode becomes like the passive mode. So sensor is only the gathering, but not really the applied policy. Another one is the last policy before the sensor is or the police server is down, is still applied to the devices. So once the police server or the sensor is become up again, then it's communicate each other, then the new policy is applied again. Okay, that is the answer. Let us check that there is another question from your side. So I guess still don't have any questions. Still, you have a time to leave us some questions. Okay. Yes, so even if the network sensor is down, yeah, sorry. So there's a related question from Faith from IAID. So question is, what if the network sensor is down? Can the agent still communicate with the police server? The answer is yes. So even if the network sensor is down, the agent still can communicate with the police server. So please leave the question on the group chat room, so we will give you some reply. We also going to have a brief review for the Q&A about session 1. During the session and or after the session, we got the question from the Google link. So since we haven't have any new questions, we are going to review the first Q&A while we're waiting for another question. So we had 3 questions from you regarding with webinar session 1. The first question was, when you say node or devices in a particular group, does it mean it should be in an Active Directory? The answer is not necessarily. So node over devices can be any IP-enabled devices working on a TCP/IP level. So including AD joint PC or just normal PC, server, IoT devices, or mobile devices. And the second question was, it is very hard to understand to set the police group. And could you please explain with the actual example? Yes, we totally understand, and it is very normal. So, especially for the people who experience our product at the early stage, please attend this rest of the seminar. I'm pretty sure that you get more the insight about this technical webinar better after you attend this session 2 compared to when you attend only session 1. So it will get used to it. So, and of course, we are going to share the actual example, especially during the session 4, okay, and including top 5 mostly used the features. So don't worry, and please stick with us, and we are going to back up with you. So keep watching our video and the practice. So don't forget to leave any question to our side. So we have another question, but please allow me to quickly finish the number 3 regarding with session 1, then we are going to get back to you. So the question 3rd was, when you create a new node policy, is it required to create an enforcement policy? So while we learned that during the session 2, node policy does not actually require an enforcement policy, but we can get some like status information, especially regarding with the node, the agent, through the node policy. So node policy may require to be set before you set the enforcement policy. So let me give you just brief example. So if you want to isolate the PC that installed the BitTorrent software, first we need to know which PC actually installed BitTorrent software. So the first step is we need to create a node policy for collecting software installation status for the agent action. And then now we have the list of software installation status of the specific group of the node. Then we can actually create a node enforcement policy for the isolation of the specific PC that installed the BitTorrent software. So I set the node policy first, and then we set enforcement policy. Okay. So we are going to share this documentation with the better the source of the explanation and the video file later. So let me get back to our real-time question. So the second question is, does the agent have a level of access role? Example, can it be configured as a guest operator?
So yeah, I really appreciated Donna asked about you may be a little confused about what the agent is doing in the Genian Next. The agent of the Genian Next, once you install the agent start to correct your device visibility, device status itself. But as your question, is the agent can be the role of the access role, I mean as the guest or operator. So in this kind of a policy, you can create a policy in the UI. So we have learned about the group, right? Status group and policy group. So you first set the group in the node menu, and then after that, this policy can be applied to the endpoint. So I think in the next third session, technical session, we are going to practice about the some use case. So I will bring some, how can you divide it into guest group and the just regular group, any other role. So you can see that how is different, how is working them. So please wait the next week. I'm going to show you how it's working. I hope that is working for you at the answer. Okay, so I think we have finished of the real-time Q&A and also your first session of a Q&A. So I highly appreciate your precious time for us. So thank you for asking the question. So yeah, that is all about the session 2 for today. Thank you for watching this session 2. I highly appreciate it. See you next week. Thank you.